Hey, morning traders. Welcome to another session of Market Snapshot. I hope everyone is geared up for the day. Today is an exciting day. We have CPI and also you have the interest rate decision in Canada. And so we'll be looking at that. So, welcome to everyone who's joining in. Hello, hello. So, let's have a look at our economic calendar. Remember, the conversation is simple. Every day when you wake up, before you look at your charts, have a look at your economic calendar. Why? Because you need to know what types of what kind of news will affect your positions, right? This is where now you're doing the fundamental analysis, right? So remember, you have sentimental analysis, fundamental, and then we also have technical. So the fundamental is what we are looking at, right? We want to see what kind of news could affect your position. So in our case today, as we can see, it's on a Wednesday. Ideally, you need to look at the red folders, right? Don't focus more on the yellow and the orange folders. The red folders are the ones that show that it's high impact news, meaning they could have effects on your trade. So later in the afternoon, during New York session at 4:30 p.m., we will see the CPI month on month and year on year. So let's have a look at this data and try to understand what it means, right? So when you look at the CPI month on month, it was 0.2%. So the forecast, this is what traders are saying, investors are saying that it could go up to 0.3%, right? That means that the rate of inflation in the US has gone up, right? And if that's the case, what should be the expectation? The dollar will strengthen, right? Because ideally, when inflation goes up, it's the expectation that the Fed would increase interest rate. But in this case, we've been cutting the interest rate. So maybe there could be a pause. And if you look at some data I was going through here, the dollar index, which measures, it's a basket of currencies, remained steady around 106 on Wednesday, following three consecutive days of gains as investors prepared for the crucial US inflation report. So this tells you investors are waiting for this report that could have a significant impact on Fed Reserve policy. A stronger than expected inflation reading could delay the Fed's plans to reduce borrowing costs. That is, continuously cut on the rates. Remember, we have this in the next 7 days, right? We'll have an FOMC meeting where we'll get to have that information from the Fed. So going back to this, the Fed plans to reduce borrowing costs, potentially supporting the dollar. Despite these, markets are currently pricing in an 86% chance of a 25 basis point rate cut by the Fed later this month. We've seen that will be in 7 days. I think next week, right? Next Wednesday, I will be here to have a look at that. Through the outlook for 2025 remains highly uncertain. Traders are also closely watching interest rate decisions from the Bank of Canada. We'll have a look at that in a few, and the European Central Bank this week, both of which are expected to implement further rate cuts. Additionally, investors are keeping an eye on developments from China's Central Economic Core Conference, especially after Beijing recently pledged additional monetary support. So you can see that this inflation data today will definitely guide the Fed meeting next Wednesday, right? That's basically what you're seeing. So if the numbers come higher, what if the numbers come higher than 0.3%, maybe 0.4% month on month, then we should see the dollar strengthening. Now let's look at the CPI year on year. So previously the number was 2.6%. So traders are expecting, investors are expecting the number to also be high, 2.7%. So what happens if the number comes out at 2.7%? Maybe it's priced in, so we could, maybe there's a chance that the dollar won't strengthen. But if the number comes out stronger, let's say 2.8%, right, then we should see the dollar strengthening. So that's basic understanding of this fundamental news. Now let's look at the Canadian dollar, right? So the Bank of the Bank of Canada will also be making interest rate decisions. So ideally, the previous last time it was 3.75. So this time around, the expectation is that the number will be 3.25%. So 50 basis point cut, right? So what happens if the number, if they do a 25 basis point? right? So maybe 3.50. That would mean that the Canadian dollar would weaken, right? However, if this number comes out at 3.25%, then maybe it could be priced in and we could see the Canadian dollar strengthening, right? Sorry, weakening, weakening because of the rate cuts, right? So we really need to look into that. And also at 6:30, the BOC press conference will also give clues onto how the Canadian economy is being steered by the Bank of Canada. So interesting times ahead. So we really need to look out for these opportunities. So remember, it's really hard for you to be in a trade and then all of a sudden, just because you didn't have this data, you see some volatility, right? And could hit your stop loss or even uh, hit you in drawdown, right? If you don't choose stop loss, which is not good. Risk management dictates that we are in a market that has uncertainty. So if there's uncertainty, then you really need to use a stop loss or manage your trades, right? So depending on your risk appetite. So that's what we are expecting. There's some news I was going through, the geopolitics over here on the dollar, on what, how the US dollar is at crossroads, decoding Trump's trade and fiscal agenda. So we can see there is a case for a strong dollar and there's a case for a weak dollar. So the US dollar finds itself in the middle of a growing debate among global investors as President-elect Donald Trump's economic and trade policies take center stage. The key question is both simple and complex. Does Trump want a stronger or a weaker dollar? His policy goals, rhetoric, and fiscal strategy paint a picture of conflicting objectives. Now, this is where the uncertainty will come in, right? Leaving markets with more questions than answers. The case for a weaker dollar, of the case of a weaker dollar, Trump's protectionist trade policies aim to reduce the US trade deficit by discouraging global trade, a stance that could weaken the dollar in several ways. So, the America First thing where Trump will be looking at working on the US economy, right? Manufacturing sector. Historically, the dollar's role as the world's reserve currency has been bolstered by its central position in global trade. A protectionist tilt could dampen international demand for dollars as fewer transactions flow through the US market, right? So a weaker dollar could also support Trump's effort to boost American manufacturing and exports. So, the policies that Trump wants to create more jobs in the US by ensuring that the exports are higher, right, through the manufacturing industry. So a depreciated currency makes US goods more competitive abroad, aligning with Trump's narrative of rebuilding domestic industries and creating jobs in the manufacturing sector. So we've seen, like in Japan, where Japan has made the yen weak because of their exports, right? So we, like for example, in Kenya, almost all the cars we have on our roads, if not 90%, they're from Japan, right? And that's because you can easily afford. So if you compare, let's say, a Japanese car from, let's say, a European car, there's no comparison, right? Japanese cars are quite cheap. Why? Because of the yen. The yen is quite weak, right? So, uh, yet this approach comes with significant risk. A declining dollar would increase the cost of imports. So, of course, when the dollar is quite weak, the import bill will be high, fueling inflationary pressures. With the US already burdened by substantial fiscal deficits, a weaker dollar could exacerbate borrowing costs and complicate the financing of debt. Remember, we've seen the US is in so much debt, right? To a point, Elon Musk is asking, how did we get here, right? And yet we are still funding wars, Ukraine, we're still supporting Israel, and yet our economy is in tatters. We saw what happened during the hurricane, right? Support for the ordinary US residents as compared to the war in Ukraine. And I think this is where now Trump had a major bargain. And guys were like, hey, by the way, there's no way we can prioritize other countries above us, right? So all this debt has been financing war, and yet the US economy is failing. Investors might demand higher returns to offset perceived risks, potentially creating headwinds for both private and public sectors. So when it comes to a case for a stronger dollar, on the other side of the coin, a stronger dollar could align with US's heavy reliance on foreign capital, The country's fiscal deficit, particularly under Trump's anticipated spending policies, would require robust capital inflow. So all these manufacturing industries will require that guys are investing in the US. So for example, we've seen a tweet. Is it a tweet or Trump's social media handle where he said anyone who's investing $1 billion will easily access everything, right? From even licenses, permits will be easy for them. A stable or appreciating dollar would attract foreign investors seeking safe, high return assets, ensuring the financing of US obligations. Moreover, a strong dollar could help contain inflation by keeping import prices in check. This will be particularly important if Trump's fiscal policies stimulate economic activity to the point of overheating. A firm dollar will serve as a counterbalance, maintaining purchasing power and stabilizing consumer markets. Right. So all this is where like the market has that uncertainty. How will if Trump is to raise funds, right? How will he raise funds? But now we can see clearly that it will not be debt. Trump is actually going ahead and easing entry into the US market. As long as you have $1 billion, then everything will be sorted out, right? So you can see Trump is making steps to ensure that more dollars are flowing into that country and bolstering the manufacturing industry, and that means at least the US economy will start exporting, trying to. I think this is where like Trump is trying to change the balance. As you have seen, China has been raining havoc in the world market. But I really can we really compete with China? Because cheap labor in China, availability of workforce. The US has a plan of kicking out immigrants who are supplying majority of the workforce. So let's see how that plays out. So there's a bit of uncertainty in the US economy, but then again, we know Trump, he'll probably figure it out with his team of advisors. So that's basically a bit of uh, the fundamentals on what to expect in terms of the dollar. So if you look at Canadian indicators, we've just seen that the interest rate decision will have that impact. So if we go to Canada indicators, we can see previously it was 4.25. We had that 50 basis point reduction. Then now we're expecting another 50 basis reduction. At least that's what, based on this, to 3.25%, that's what investors are anticipating. So we could see a weak Canadian dollar, right, on this particular front. So let's now go to our charts with this understanding and see whether we can try and project where we anticipate the markets to move as we go into this particular session. Okay, so remember to pose your questions as we proceed. So I'll be sharing my MT5. Let's try and analyze the markets. Let's see where we were yesterday. Now, Euro USD, we were looking at a bullish push. So clearly this trade didn't play out as anticipated. I remember yesterday someone asked about a gap. You can remember this gap. It has already closed. This was on H1. I drew this gap yesterday, and we can see that gap has closed. Could this mean that now we are looking at a bullish Euro USD? So let's remove this analysis. Let's remove that analysis and seek opportunities. So, sorry. Let's go to H4. So if you go to H4, then I would want to map out these areas as possible areas of support. 1.0459. If we go to the daily, there's also now this other area, which is also right now the monthly low, right? The monthly low. If we go to H1, we could see this trade now ideally coming down to that low. That's a possibility now that we've breached yesterday's low. So yesterday's low, which is this low here, has been breached. However, there's something interesting. Seems like we've closed this first leg with a morning star pattern. So when we see a morning star pattern, ideally it shows that buyers are quite strong. But then again, this is the first leg of the W. We would want to see a second pass on this leg and see whether the market will test this low before pushing up. So this is the low of the day right now. The low of the day has been formed. So maybe we could see Euro USD coming down to test that area. So if I were to look for opportunities, ideally, if we could see a spike to this area, and this could happen during the CPI news. This is a possibility that could play out. We could probably see Euro USD maybe push down to this area. That will be an exciting trade, right? Before now pushing up. At least this will present a good case to now go long for maybe 100 and something pips. So I wouldn't fall for this trade because now we have now CPI, right? CPI is a volatile news. So we all know there are times we see trap moves like we saw. You remember what we saw on NFP? This spike to the high before a bearish push to where we are currently, right? This first move, I remember in Mombasa, we were analyzing this and I told guys there's a high chance that we'll see some guys trapped, some buyers being trapped here because the trend was more of sell. And later we have seen that sell play out till today. So if the numbers, if let's say we see two conflicting data. What do I mean by this? The first data, month on month, and the year on year, right? If we see two conflicting data, one maybe 0.3, the other one maybe comes out 2.8 or higher, right? Then we could see some strong dollar. That would mean the bearish push playing out, right? So as traders, we just need to once the number has come out, we can evaluate and see whether we'll have conflicting different data sets, right? And that will enable us to take position. So I would want to see a spike to that low, H4, the low of last week, and from there maybe then we can look at a bullish push on this particular trade, because this low, which is the monthly low and also last week's low, could be acting as a strong support area on this particular trade. So that's Euro USD. So let's go to AUD USD. AUD USD, we're also looking at sells and then a bullish push. So clearly we can see this support didn't hold. And so just like we are seeing on this particular trade, let's go to higher time frames. So AUD USD has tested the yearly low. So this is the yearly low, which was in we've seen it's in the month of was it August? This month, yeah, this low, it was August. So we could probably see we can see that yearly low has been tested and then buyers have stepped in, right? So I would want to see whether this trade will come back to test this area. So let's remove this analysis because now it's been invalidated. So the sell played out, but then the bullish push didn't play out. And this will happen in trading. So we can see a possible test of this low. The low of August has been tested again today. And now we can see some buyers stepping in from this low, right? That tells you that this low is holding. You can see it has closed in a week, and price has closed above the low, right? So we should probably see a test of this area on our USD. Now this is officially the yearly low as it is. So maybe a test of this area before we could see a bullish push. From my end, I anticipate, I could probably anticipate a weak dollar later, right? Could come out as a strong dollar, but then later, maybe after 1 hour, we could see now the dollar strengthening. And so I'm still bullish on AUD USD. UT100, the analysis from Monday. Remember on Monday you were selling. Monday, Tuesday, today was on Wednesday. We were looking at this sell. So we can see I didn't change this analysis. So UT100 came exactly to the area I had analyzed on Monday, and that sell was complete. Right. So after hitting this area, we can see some bulls. So today, as we go into the New York session, what do we anticipate? I would still want to see a bearish push. I would still want to see a bearish push on this particular trade. To this moving average, right? So I would now want to see UT100 test that moving average. And if possible, test last month's high, right? So last month's high should act as an area of resistance, but this time around, I would want it to act as an area of support, right? So if we go to this trade, we could probably see, we should probably see price come down to test this low. Take profit one again, and then we can probably see that push. That's what I would want to see on UT100. GU, the analysis was yesterday. We were looking for GU to come down and test these areas and then go up. So we can see GU is yet to test those areas. So I'll still maintain that analysis for now, that we could see a possibility of GU coming down to those particular areas before buyer step in. So this analysis for me remains that way. I would want to see how GU reacts to these lows as of yesterday. And from there, maybe we could see some bullish push. Gold, we were looking at buys. Ideally, we were looking at a test of this area before a bullish push. So gold didn't really come down to test these areas, but we can see price being bullish, right? So we were looking at more of buys, and then we can see it played out. So maybe a test of these lows will now will be an area we look forward to see. So let's remove this analysis. Once again, remember, this is purely educational analysis. This is purely educational analysis. So if we go to H4, I would want to see that area being tested. Yeah, so maybe some point we will see gold come down to test this area. So maybe this bullish push will get to that area. then we can see some sellers stepping in. Sorry. Yeah, so maybe this bullish push, and then maybe gold will come back to test that low. Alternatively, last month's high, right? Uh, Gold could also go to test last month's high, the high of November. Is that the high of November, really? Nope, that's not the high of November. Uh, the high of November is actually here. Is it possible to have gold go all the way up? Well, interesting. So I'd rather go with this other block over here. I'd rather go with this order block as an area probably gold could test this high. There's a possibility gold could go all the way up. And then maybe from there, we could now see a sell trade on gold. Okay, USD we were looking at a bullish push. So we can see that bullish push played out. But then again, now this has been invalidated. This sell has been invalidated. And so we are looking at, right now, we are looking at a short opportunity. But if we go to higher time frames, where are we at? There's something interesting that we need to identify, that this gap from yesterday, I remember discussing this gap, yeah, on USD CHF is yet to be closed, right? So there's so many guys who have position sales from November, right? Trying to, some of us even removed our stop losses, right? Trying to trade this gap. Well, this could play out maybe to this week or next week, right? It all depends on the CPI data, but we'll come back and reevaluate this. So let me remove this analysis. And figure out, project some areas that we anticipate USD CHF to go to. So if we go to H4, we have a high that could be tested. That's around 49 pips away from current market price. So there's a possibility that we could see USD CHF test this high before a sell. However, we need to remember we still have a gap here. That needs to be filled. Yeah. So I'll still want to see this trade hit those areas. So maybe this bearish push before continuation of the bullish trend. Okay, GJ. Someone had requested analysis on GJ from Monday. So we were looking for buy opportunities on GJ, and we said that I was waiting for price to get here. So we can see price got to this price level yesterday, and then some sellers stepped in. And I think we're done with that particular trade. US 30. Yesterday, someone also requested analysis on USDT yesterday. So we were looking for sell opportunities. We can see that sell played out. However, it's yet to come to this area. So we maintain this analysis that USDT is still a sell. Right, we'll want to see USDT drop. So it dropped a few pips, tested that area, then dropped to where we got yesterday. So I'm still anticipating Dow Jones to keep dipping. And then USD JPY, we were looking for a bullish push to this price level. So we had that bullish push play out for around how many pips? For around 70 pips, but then they didn't get to the target. So I'm still bullish on USD JPY to that target from yesterday. So this analysis still remains valid. Yeah, that's it. Any questions? Let's have a look at your questions. And remember, we still have mentorship classes ongoing. So right now, as we speak, if you're an intermediate or advanced trader, we have a class ongoing, a Zoom class, right? It's a 1 hour class. Which period EMAs are you using? I'm using the 50, the 200, and the 800 EMA, exponential moving averages. So the blue one is the 50, the black one is the 200, and the purple one is the 800. They're just part of confirmations. I don't really use them to identify trades. But when it comes to booking profits, I get to use them a lot. Where will I book my profit? For example, if I took a sell here, my take profit will probably be here, and another take profit down here. So they really help me in identifying areas where I book my profits. If you go to even lower time frames, you can see them acting as very good support resistance. So they really help me in identifying, especially take profit target areas. Martin, I hope I've answered your question. Any other question? What's your take on GJ? Linton, I've just analyzed GJ. We still have a bullish push. So if we are to follow what USD JPY is doing, so USD JPY should probably come to this low before pushing up. So I'm still bullish on, if I'm bullish on USD JPY, that's because of a weak yen, right? Then I'm also looking at the same playing out on GJ. So if I were to look at GJ, let's go to the daily. So I'll be bullish on GJ to probably that area. Any other question? So that's GJ. Once again, remember this is purely educational analysis. Any other question? So remember, as a trader, risk management is what I consider it more of my edge, right? Away from the trading strategy, I make sure that my risk management is good, because there are times you'll take a trade and it will fail, right? Remember, we are in a business just like any other business. You'll have times you'll have losses, right? So what makes you stage a comeback is capital preservation, and a stop loss helps you in that, right? Yeah. Like I gave you guys the example of USDCHF. We've seen guys who held on to USDCHF. They were trying to close this gap, right? And you can see this trade literally has pushed almost 200 pips, 170, 176 pips. Not many accounts were able to handle this, right? So some traders had to, some of them had to remove their stop losses. Yeah. So that at least they can expect this bullish push, which is now playing out. So let's see how that plays out. Anyway. Any other question? I think that's it. Or when will you guys be coming to Eldoret? Ian, awesome question. The masterclass, the first masterclass in January, we are coming to Eldoret on 24th, if I'm not wrong. I think it's 24th. Let me have a look at this calendar. Yes, it will be on 24th. New year, our first town will be Eldoret, so wait for that. We are coming. Any other question? We don't have a question, right? So this is our support, guys. We ensure that you guys, intermediate traders, advanced traders, you're able to come in, have a look at a few analyses. Just because we are analyzing the markets doesn't mean that we'll always ace it, right? There are times we'll have winning trades, for example, UT100 and others over here, but there are times you'll have losing streaks, and that means this is where once again your risk management will always help you maneuver that time, right? Your risk management, remember, even your risk to reward, right? So for example, if you look at UT100, presented a good risk to reward from Monday, right? If you look at the number of pips here, that's amazing, right? To yesterday, right? So this could have easily outweighed any losses probably you had on, some of these trades. 20 pips stop loss, 30 pips. If you compare with 200, 300 pips on UT100, then of course that tells you that you're still blue. Okay. So a good risk to reward is amazing. It really helps you take care of your losses, right? Yeah, that's it. Any other question or feedback? Remember to follow FX Pesa social media handles. If you're in Mombasa, please let us know. How was the Mombasa event, right? Did you guys learn the strategy? If you're in Meru, please let us know. Did you enjoy the session? Or, give us your honest feedback. We really appreciate when you give us feedback, right? Because that's how we get to grow even on our end. So if you don't have any questions, so let's call it a day. Remember, once again, recap, we have CPI. Sorry, I should have looked at USD card. No one is requesting for USD card, and yet we have the Canadian news, right? So let's have a look at USD card. So let's go to USD card. Loonie, where's the Loonie? Chart window. So this is, I've not actually analyzed this trade. So let's see where opportunities are. Go to higher time frames. So we've been bullish from the daily. We've been on a bullish trend. So you can see some rejection there. This area seems to be a strong resistance, but for how long? That's the question. So if I were to look for opportunities on USD card, I'll probably be looking at a test of this high, yesterday's high. A test of yesterday's high will probably present a good case. We can see price getting rejected on this area, and I've seen it's because of I've seen this in the weekly, right? Remember, technical analysis is where you look left, right? So that you can trade right. So on our left, we can see some bit of a order block over here that is acting as some resistance. So the order block over there is the one that order block on the weekly is the one that has led to this area acting as an area of resistance. So maybe we should see that whole order block played out before bearish trend. So I'll still want to see how market reacts to this high before maybe considering short trades on this one. However, intraday, this is what I would want to see. But we have that news coming in. So maybe that bearish push. That's it. No questions, right? So bye bye. Have a bullish day. Observe risk management. That's the only thing that will keep you in this business. Okay, and having a good risk to reward will also enable you to overcome the losses. One trade can easily wipe out 5 losses or even 10 losses, depending on your risk to reward. Yeah. Okay. So bye bye. See you tomorrow.